as my dad started navigating the intricacies of selling tequila, which there's a lot of intricacies, if you want to bring booze across a border, we get the container and we get the orders and we do all these and we get it through and the check clears and I'm super stoked. I'm like, this worked, Dad. I can't believe it.
Today on the Curious Builder podcast, we had Martin Davies O'Connor in from Mill City Restoration, and you're going to want to stay tuned. This goes a little over. We go about 20 minutes over the hour, but stay tuned. You're going to see a ton of energy between the two of us, and really it takes us about a half hour to get through all of Martin's various careers. He's a true Renaissance man. If you like serial entrepreneurs, you're in for a good one. Buckle up your seatbelt. Here is Martin with Mill City Restorations. All right, welcome to the Curious Builder podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today, I'm joined with Martin Davies O'Connor from Mill City Restoration right here in Minnesota.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a real honor.
In studio. You know what? I actually was looking back. I can't remember because we hadn't met before.
No.
Did your wife reach out? Because I know you guys own the business together, or I can't remember how we got connected.
So some of the things that I like to do, and this was some of the focus of this year, is I just reach out to people. If I like your branding, if I like your advertising. And so I came across your ad and I just reached out to you.
Oh, well, there we go.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I'm like, because usually I have a pretty good, I was like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Because it's funny on like when people come into our custom home company, we have them go through the portal. It's like, did you hear about us on Google or word of mouth or referral? I don't have one for the Curious Builder. Anyway, so I was like, sometimes because we book out 5-6 months in advance, we probably booked this back in April.
We did.
And then it shows up on my calendar. I'm like, I don't know who Martin Davies O'Connor is. So I'm going to have to
we've never met until like 5 minutes ago.
Which, I mean, honestly, a lot of the people I don't know or have not met before, which is fine. But anyway, it was just, okay. So anyway, as I did some research earlier the week, kind of figuring out a little bit more about your company. But you're a Renaissance man. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. I mean, honestly, I don't know if a Rhodes Scholar has as many jobs landing as you've had. Let's start just because I find it really interesting. Yeah. So I'll go in reverse order from what you're doing now. Okay. We'll spend most of it talking about Mill City Restoration for the last 11 years. But your first one, Microsoft Excel trainer, 3 years. You traveled around the United States as a presenter, trainer, keynote speaker, addressing crowds of 100 to 200. How old were you when you were doing this?
I was in my late 20s. And maybe what I should do is just step back if you want to know how did that journey happen?
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So currently I'm a little older than 50. We'll say that. And so what happened was I grew up in South Minneapolis. Really. Well, I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota. As a teenager, then I moved to Minneapolis with my dad. And in that time frame, that was an exciting time to be in Minneapolis, the late 80s, early 90s. And so I kind of I got into the punk rock movement. Yeah. And the punk rock movement sort of kept me active. And what I mean by that is that it made me want to not really settle down, not really want to do a lot of things, not do what I would consider like a traditional move forward. So in my mid 20s, I got married, and then I inherited one stepson, and then I got another son. Right? Nice. That's kind of the bonus package.
One for one.
Yeah. The bonus package.
Buy one, get one free.
Yeah, that was exactly. And so what had happened was in my late 20s, my brother has been living in Guadalajara, Mexico now for 30 some years. And back then it was not that long, but I had traveled there a couple of times. And when my children were younger, very small, I decided real quick when my youngest son was there that I wanted them to be both bilingual and bicultural. And I had a business painting in Fargo, North Dakota at the time, where I'd gone back to finish my degree. And so what I did is I sold the business, and I said to my wife, let's move to Mexico where my brother is. And I promise this gets to the excitement.
This is amazing.
Yeah. So we moved to just south of Guadalajara. So Guadalajara is Mexico's second largest city. And then just south of Guadalajara is Mexico's largest lake, Lake Chapala. And it's the largest community of Americans outside the US. And my brother lives in Guadalajara, the big city. And then we moved to the village. And so when we were in the village, that's when I decided I've got to do something. So I wish I was independently wealthy at the time and that I could have just retired. That would have been dynamite.
So this is late 90s?
Yeah, late 90s. Well, a little bit after 2000 there. Yeah, so maybe I'm in my early 30s now. I probably am getting the time, but early 30s. So anyway, my brother, who we were talking just a little bit about beforehand, he was doing some training at the time in what's called soft skills. So how do we relate to other folks and that kind of jazz. And so he said to me, hey, my company has an opening for hard skills trainer training Excel. And I said, that's dynamite. What is Excel? And so so I made like the demo tape and with what limited knowledge I had, and I got the job.
And this is well before like virtual or anything like that, right? So how is he training these people from Guadalajara?
So what happens is that you train them on site. And so, for example, I would fly to all sorts of all around the country and Canada. It was really great. The better you became at the job, the bigger your crowds, and then you got to go to the larger cities. So Seattle, from anywhere from Seattle to New York City. My favorite, not that they're big ones, but was the Alaska tour. I loved doing Juneau, Anchorage, Fairbanks. That was the tour. So anyway, that's how it happened. I just decided I've got to do something. So I was living in Guadalajara, basically, and I would fly out and I'd work anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks on the road. And then I'd come home. And what I loved about it was the freedom then. When I came home, it was over. Like work was over, right? So it could just shift.
So it was almost like shift work. You'd 2 to 8 weeks on, and then how long would you take off and be off?
It would depend. Few weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know, a month, something like that. Yeah. And it was really great. And it was a good time to learn Excel, or to be an Excel instructor and learn it at the same time, because I had to figure out what I was going to teach folks.
That's amazing. I mean, you're obviously very charismatic. So your brother is lining up these events. So you're going up to Juneau.
Yeah.
Who's paying for this? Like, now I'm just curious about this business.
Yeah, right. So it was 2 different things. You could either have a seminar at, let's say, a Marriott, and then different companies would send folks. So for example, with Excel, a lot of people need CEU units because I'm an accountant or I'm whatever it is. And so you may have a Marriott lobby, and then you've got 10 different companies that have each paid X amount of dollars to come.
Gotcha.
Or the flip side is, if the demand was great enough within your company, you might hire me to just come into your company and teach 20 folks about pivot tables, and they get their CEU. So those are the 2 ways that worked. And I loved it. And the reason I loved it is because it's a real dry subject, but what you start to figure out is you're trying to translate. So it's a language, right? Excel's a language, or just like anything else. And so, and what I mean by that is that not everybody speaks fluently in Excel. Not everybody understands the nuances. So what I really enjoyed about that, especially with, say, a crowd of 100 plus, you'd had to figure out real quickly where people were at, so you could talk to them in their own language. Some people were programmers, and so they loved VBA, and they were there for like really hardcore stuff. And other folks just really wanted to figure out how to take a set of data and just turn it into a spreadsheet, into a graph or something like that. And so you can make it fun, because I know it sounds wacko, but like that I don't know about now, but there were like shortcut keys that could bring you right to solitaire. So like those would be like the crowd favorites to try to make it fun, but at the same time,
that precedes like the boss button for NCAA. You know what that is?
No.
So like for NCAA brackets and March Madness and whatnot.
Okay.
If you're in corporate America, which we're clearly not, you would have there would be a boss button. So you'd be watching these live stream games, and then it was like the idea was like someone would walk behind you, you'd press the button, and a bunch of spreadsheets would show up on your dashboard. Your boss would walk by, you'd unclick it, it would go back to the NCAA basketball.
Yes. So for me, that was exactly it. Like you'd have the secret button that you could play your solitaire and things like that. So I really enjoyed that. And what I didn't know, which kind of brings us up to today, or what I'm really happy about, is that currently I'm in a master's program for accounting. And so all of these things that I did 20 years ago, it all becomes full circle evenally.
Well, that was what's amazing. You stayed there for 3 years, because usually as you go through this, so then tell me about Eamon Import. So this obviously now makes way more sense. When I was reading the bio, it's like you're negotiating tequila sales and exporting to Budweiser in South Texas.
Oh, that's honestly so fun.
This is reads like a Narcos, like you're a training mule, and like you're doing
it wasn't just tequila. Let me tell you, Mark.
Tequila, man. This is like early. Like
I don't know. People can fit in little boxes. Yeah. No, what had happened was, so my son, who's named Eamon, so we started Eamon Imports this was with my dad, and my dad, he's a little bit of a wacko, and so he could never retire, he could never sit down, so he lived in Mexico at the same time as he moved down to be with his grandkids, right? So he couldn't just sit still. So
he moved down from North Dakota.
Yeah, sorry.
No, he was in Minneapolis.
Yep, you're right. Yep. So moves from Minneapolis, and he comes down, and he's just so. Guadalajara, I should say this, Jalisco, in fact, the state that Guadalajara is in, you have to call something tequila to actually brand it as tequila as opposed to mezcal or another variation of the agave plant. It has to come from the state of Jalisco, which is where we lived. So my dad, he was always out meeting folks and doing things like that. And he met a gentleman who sold tequila, but they didn't have distribution in the US. And so my dad came to me one time and he's like, hey, guess what we're going to do? And what was great about that is at the time I owned a design company, which I think is in there. And so I had
That's OC2?
OC2 Interactive. Yeah. So I said, well, that fits in great. So as my dad started navigating the intricacies of selling tequila, which there's a lot of intricacies. If you want to bring booze across a border, you can't just do it. So he figured out all that. And then he would say, we need a label for this. We need a label for that. So we designed it all. And that was kind of a tragic stuff. That was like our tragedy though, because that was so much fun, but it was crazy. Like, I mean, you don't think you're going to sell tequila. You're just going to move down
there.
Who
are you selling it to? Are you selling it to middlemen, warehouses, people?
Sure. So what had happened is just at that, right around that time, Budweiser was purchased, and I'm not going to get all the details right at this point, but I think they were purchased by Heineken or something like that, let's say.
I thought Budweiser was actually bought out by that big company in Europe. I'm blanking on their name. But anyway, they bought like a whole series, a whole brand of them all.
Yeah, and I want to say maybe it was just under the same umbrella as Heineken. I don't remember, but prior to that, and I forget exactly, but you had to stay in your lane. So if I was a Budweiser distributor, if I sold Budweiser, that's what I did. I sold Budweiser and beer. And once they made this arrangement, they were able to expand beyond just beer. And so my dad, I don't know how he did it, but he contacted whomever within that Budweiser family in South Texas, and they said, sure. And so bring the tequila up. That was a lot of fun. So we brought the tequila up, and I couldn't believe it because really it's such a strange thing at the time. You're like, I'm going to sell tequila. So we went up and met with them, and then they said, yeah, let's do it. So what was great about that is we go back and we get the container and we get the orders and we do all these and we get it through. And the check clears and everything. And I'm super stoked. I'm like, this worked, Dad. I can't believe it. Like it took us like a year to make the labels and to do all this stuff. And we get it through and we're like, oh, we did it. This is so great. And then like literally the next week, the gentleman, because Texas is like multi-tiered. If you sell booze, you can't distribute booze. If you distribute booze, all these different tiers. So our distributor who sold it on our behalf to Budweiser, his wife got sick, and the stress of the sickness caused him to have a stroke.
Oh,
and so he calls us the next week and he's like, I just quit. And so we've got like a container up there. And to be honest with you, I don't even know if it's ever been distributed. For all I know, it's collecting dust up there. And that's the God's honest truth. Like, I was so excited. Like this was
literally a one and done empire. You're like, we did one shipment of tequila. It took us a year to do it. Hey, maybe it'll be like a collector's item. It's like, I don't know if how tequila ages like wine. It's like they find
it's super añejo now at this point.
Yeah.
It's just age. And that's what happened. And like, so I love to put on there, hey, we did this. We were able to do all the intricacies of it. And then that's what happened. The guy got sick, and that was the end part. So Tequila Empire.
I didn't realize. Yeah, this makes more sense. You're general manager of Mexico logo design guru.
Yes.
So that's all part of that.
Right. Because what had happened was when I was teaching Excel, I was in Philadelphia, and this gentleman who owned Logo Design Guru attends my class. And he's like, I really think you're fun to talk to, and you live in Mexico. We should, and they were doing great at the time. So this was at the time you're doing online logo design. It had shifted. The idea of creating a logo was kind of catching on. So you could do all sorts of branding and all these different things. And so he saw my speech or whatever. He went to my class and he was like, man, that was a lot of fun. And I'm wondering if you'd be interested in opening up a design company, being the manager of it. And by that time I was getting tired. It had been a few years. And when you're doing 8 weeks, well, I'm sure you've probably, I don't know in your industry if you do a lot of out of town stuff, but
no, not for me. I mean, not because I'm doing residential construction for my main job.
Right.
And so I'm sort of confined to, obviously, let's call it 100 miles, 150 miles. Yeah. There are some builders I know, like a buddy of mine, Brad Robinson, down in Atlanta, Georgia. he's looking to go into Charleston market. So the normal model is you'd hire a PM or a couple people, you'd set up a satellite offices. So it's just not super common, especially in high-end custom residential. It's more common, let's say, national builders, of course, and things like that.
Sure.
They're more spread out. Through the Curious Builder entity, however, I do actually end up doing a lot more travel, but that's just because whether it's education groups like the Curious Collectives, or we have something called the Boot Camp, and there's a bunch of other things. So oddly enough, for my building company, I don't travel much. For Curious Builder, I actually travel a fair amount. My wife the other day goes like, you are traveling a lot. Like basically like the person I married is traveling way more, because you usually hear about people that traveled a lot early in their career.
Right.
They get married, they have kids, they travel less.
Yeah.
I'm like inverted. Like I had no travel when I first got married, have kids, and now I'm starting to travel more, which is sort of ironic.
Is that like the Costa Rica?
Costa Rica is the Curious Builder Boot Camp. So a little tangent.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
So I love wellness, love running, love athletics, all those kinds of things. The last couple of years I've gotten into ultra running because my neighbors got into it and we live next to them. So
and what's that like?
Ultra running is anything
50 miles?
Anything over a marathon. So 50 miles, 100 miles, 100K, anything above.
Mm-hmm.
And so ultimately you just end up being around your peers are who you end up modifying to. It's kind of like that old saying, if like, show me your 5 best friends, I'll show you your future. And so it turns out my 5 best friends are all ultra athletes. So I guess I am now too.
Right on.
So it's like who you hang out with. Anyway, long story short, I like the boundary waters. I like getting off the grid. And so the boot camp we tried it this year in Zion National Park in May. And so the goal is 2-a-day workouts for 3 days, get off the grid, no phones, no alcohol. And the whole goal was to kind of do a reset and let wellness, and like wellness means a lot of different things. It could be your health, it could be your mental stability, your physical, just so many different things. And so I wanted to see, it was a beta test to see if it worked. We had 12 builders show up from around the country and it was great. So we're doing our second one in January down in Costa Rica for 3 days. Same concept. You fly down there, no phones, no alcohol, 2-a-day workouts, amazing accommodations, amazing food, but it's also, they're mostly owners of businesses. So it's really, you get so many of the conversations of how we learn it's even why we have the podcast, just having conversations about life and how you balance all this stuff. There's no training manual on how to import tequila or train. It's all these stories. It's a little bit like branding. You're just sharing the story and how that impacts people. And so we have 13 people signed up. We have room for 20. And so I kind of want to fight the stereotype that builders are fat, hairy, alcoholic, flannel wearing fatties. I say that sort of glibly, but just like the idea that like our industry is very underrepresented and there's a lot of stereotypes around it. And so I wanted to challenge the status quo. And that was kind of the goal with it. So,
that's great.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
And then the next one will be in Guadalajara.
There we go. Yeah, we'll have to talk about it.
Can't wait.
I want to see what this lake's all about. We actually looked at, because Cancun's easy to fly into.
Sure.
So we were going to fly into Cancun and go down to, what's just south of Cancun, 2 hours.
Let's see. Merida's down there.
No, the town. Oh my word. It can't be as I'm blanking on it. It's where some of the Mayan ruins are and things like that.
Not like Palenque? I can't remember.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter.
That's anyway, south of me. So
So anyway, I was just trying to find new places. It's always fun to if you can kind of make vacation. It's not vacation because you're working hard.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of different, getting you out of, it's just trying to get people out of their comfort zone.
Sure.
To do something different, to sort of reconnect with others that are in similar stages of life, but also kind of reconnect with themselves. Because sometimes you just need a hard time out.
I dig it.
Yeah. So that's what that's all about.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. You should come.
I probably will be now. You got me all excited.
Amazing. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while now, or even if this is your first episode, I talk about the Contractor Coalition Summit all of the time. Our next one is happening November 7th through November 10th in Chicago. And all the details can be found at thecontractorcoalitionsummit.com. You've got Brad Levitt, Nick Schiffer, Tyler Grace, Morgan Molitor, and myself will all be there. We've got great content over 3 days. You've got builders from all over the country. Try to get it to about that 30 people number. And we'll have sponsors as well that add a lot of value to each one of these dedicated days where you're talking about contracts and spreadsheets and margin and whether you're doing fixed bid or cost plus, your pre-construction agreements. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. If you haven't been following it yet, you should. The Contractor Coalition Summit Instagram page is giving you a steady diet of the conversations that are being had, a lot of promo reels, a lot of the interviews that I've done personally at Omaha, which was my first Contractor Coalition where I'm part of the leadership leadership, I interviewed all 36 people that attended, and we're going to be unveiling each one of their interviews over the next couple of months. So people that were not able to attend and would like to can kind of get a better idea of the value that builders are getting. So if you're going to sign up and come to Chicago, you can type in the promo code Curious Builder and get $2,500 off, and we'll see you in Chicago. When it comes to quality, craftsmanship, and performance, Pella sets the standard. Whether you're building custom homes or designing a timeless space, Pella offers innovative window and door solutions that blend beauty and efficiency. With showrooms and experts around the country, Pella makes it easy to find the perfect fit for your next project and their team to support it. Build with confidence, build with Pella. Visit Pella.com to explore products and connect with your local rep today. For more information, you can listen to episode 1 or listen to episode 109, where we bring on Pella owners and founders at Pella Northland, as well as their innovative team behind the Steady Set innovation. So OC2, you're interactive. So you've got a branding company. How is that different than Logo Design Guru? Because you kind of meant...
Yeah. What happened was that so with Logo Design Guru, I was the manager. And so Logo Design Guru had 3 offices. They had one right outside of outside of Philadelphia, kind of Bucks County area. And then that's where the owners lived. But one of the owners was originally from Pakistan. So there was a second office in Pakistan. And then the third office opened up and it was mine. And so what had happened was we continued to, and I like to perform. I like to perform well. I hadn't worked for anybody in quite some time, so I wanted to do well for them. So we built up this really nice, one of the beautiful things about where I live is because it's the largest community of Americans, what I realized quickly. So the first stage in that was that we started a design component of the company. And originally we thought is that we would do a Spanish version of Logo Design Guru. So it was called Logotipo, like Logotipo is logo in Spanish. And what we found soon was that even if you were a Spanish speaker, you were still searching in English. But luckily at that point, what we had found is that our design team was culturally, so you had designers in Pakistan, you had designers in Guadalajara. And the thing about the Guadalajara is that we were just a little more aligned culturally, the relevance. And then a big thing that you don't think about as often, but when you're doing that kind of work is we're also in the same time zone as many folks. So if you needed something done, my office could do it just like that. We didn't have to wait a day and all these other kinds of things. So a lot of that work back then was it wouldn't be crowdsourcing, but it would be outsourcing to
a community down there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then what we found, so all of a sudden our design team starts to take over in terms of our design. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. So like our designs are better, are a little more aligned with what people, because we understand the language. And then we realized that we could also shift and do support work, for example. So customer service went down because now I could just talk to folks that were retired and looking for work and bring them right in. And they loved it. Right. So now all of a sudden we become the support team. And then that just transferred into sales. So basically the entire company operations moved to my office in Mexico. And then what happened is maybe 5 years, something like that. The shift then was not just kind of this outsource, but then it became crowdsourcing. So everything that we did was in-house. And then I think it's a cool thing, but you see things like, I don't know what they are now, but like Fiverr, maybe it's still around.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep. Nope. I've seen Fiverr.
Where now you can post a bid. So It used to be that we had fixed costs.
And now you're like, hey, I want a logo. My sister did it actually. She had a little side business out in Colorado and she needs some logo work done.
Yep.
So she's like, hey, I want a logo. Here's the description. People would bid on it. Hey, $500,
exactly.
$300, $200, whatever it is. And yeah, it's great.
It is. It's a great budget sensitive solution to that. But that was so disruptive that at that point, it was just too disruptive to really kind of keep Logo Design Guru going as it was. And so at that point, we split up. And I said, at that point, there was not enough. You couldn't really crowdsource out well anyway. And maybe you can now. Web design. So OC2 Interactive, there's two. It's Michelle. So my wife, Michelle, and myself, we're the two O'Connors. So OC2 Interactive. Yeah, nod to her. Hat tip to Joe Whitty, who came up with the name. But yeah, so that's what it became. We took the web work from logo design guru, and we became that solution. And so that's what we did for many years, was emphasis on web design and development.
I should go back to this before. Why was it important that or what was the epiphany that you wanted your family and your children to be bilingual and bicultural?
Sure.
What was the driver behind that? Because it had a huge impact on your whole life.
Yeah, totally. So my brother, he was 21, and he and I are the same. We're 10 months apart. So basically we're the same age. When he was 20-ish, 21, he was a
Irish twins.
That's correct. Yes, that is exactly right. And so my mom was busy for a while. And so he was a stockbroker in Chicago. And so just a young kid starting off his career, whatever it is. And we went down to Mexico, and my mom got remarried. And so at the time, we go down to Mexico, my brother and I, because my mom wanted to just bring us down there afterwards as sort of a celebration. It was my brother and my mom and her husband. Bottom line is we went to Mazatlan. And I'll tell you, here's a side note. My brother and I were like so wet behind the ears. I remember we got off the plane and it was really late at night. We get zoomed to our hotel. And I've never been to Mexico at this point, right? So, and it was like, it felt like they were like tinted out windows. And we're like, where are we going, man? What is happening here? Get to the hotel. It felt like we were being whisked away. But we get in there, and I just remember saying to my brothers, we went to our room, I'm like, do you think those palm trees are real? We found out the next day they were, plus the other 10,000 of them. But anyway, when we were down there, my brother met some folks, and my brother started dating, my brother who's gay, he started dating a guy, or met a guy. Anyway, comes back to Chicago, and then like a month later goes, hey man, I'm moving to Guadalajara.
Oh my.
And at that point, outside of a Steely Dan song that goes, Guadalajara won't do. And I was like, I don't even know what it is. And we didn't have Google back then. You didn't go Google it. So yeah, he just moved. So anyway, he goes down there. My brother Dan, I'll just call him Dan. Dan's a pretty smart guy. He learned Spanish just like that, like within 6 months. It's weird how fast he learned it. And it was just so beneficial for him, So now all of a sudden he's totally bilingual. And the benefits that I could see of just being bilingual at the time were huge. I know it's not quite the same, only because so many folks nowadays are bilingual, but at the time it was a heck of a skill set. And so when my kids were grown, and again, kind of going back to that punk rock ethos of just saying, hey, I don't want to settle down. I don't want these things right now. I want a little bit, just keep shaking it up. But I also want to make sure that my kids are prepared for the future with some real foundational things. And so I had the opportunity, like I said back then, to not only have them learn another language, which I think is amazing, right? The immersion schools here and whatever you are choosing to do, nothing wrong with it. But I thought, let's take it one step further and like really just kind of make them bicultural, really understand the cultures of it all.
How long did it take you to learn the language?
Oh, I don't even know if right now I still take lessons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was doing a great job of it, learning Spanish, and I can talk a lot. I mean, it's really beneficial in my industry, especially in commercial, to know Spanish and be able to talk to a lot of my guys are Spanish speakers.
Yep.
But, for me, I was learning over a couple of years, still nowhere near what my brother was. But the biggest challenge after that is, well, there's two challenges. I live in the largest community of Americans outside the U.S. It's an English-driven economy. So even all of my Mexican friends,
they don't get to practice it.
Yeah, they're like, hey, let's speak English. And like after a while, you're like, okay, that's a lot easier. And then the second problem that I had is that my son, once he was about 4 years old, was totally bilingual. So then all of a sudden, I've just got this little translator.
Perfect.
So that stunts my language growth as well. But
I have actually a little time out here. So
yeah,
I'd love to get your perspective on this. This is my guess, and I would love for your viewpoint, both as an entrepreneur and someone who, bicultural and bilingual. So we still have it, although we're not active with it. So we have the Curious Builder in Espanol.
Okay.
So Bellicus Cruz is someone I interviewed, amazing Latino woman, love her to death. She's awesome. We had her doing podcasts in Spanish for the Curious Builder because I don't speak Spanish. And I want these stories of entrepreneurship and all the stories to be shared. We found that she had a really hard time, getting Spanish speaking owners to come on the podcast, number one. And number two, we had a real hard time with listenership. And I look at, like in construction, like a lot of my painters, my siders, my roofers, concrete. I mean, I'd say 40% of our construction base in Minnesota speak Spanish. This is a total guess, right? And so I'm like, I just want the resource to be out there. We thought about translating it like my interviews, but I wanted also to have a woman's perspective who's an owner, Bellicus's point of view. Plus, she's obviously a native and can speak the language amazingly. And so, but we found that the owners that are in the US that own businesses, speak English, want to speak English, and their clientele that they want to be paid from are English speakers.
Yeah.
Not Spanish speakers.
Right.
So I had never thought about that before, but the reason I bring it up now is to get your perspective on it. Is it makes a little more sense because even when you're in Guadalajara in this expat community, it's hard for you to practice English or Spanish because you're like in this insulated bubble of English.
Yeah.
Why do you think the podcast didn't really take off or why it didn't work? And is my idea just sort of doomed to fail, or is it sort of like, what we found is we couldn't find a base. Like the people that would listen to it would probably be other countries,
right?
Not in the US. What's your thoughts on that?
It reminds me of, again, the logotipo. You think to yourself, hey, you know what? We've got this logo design guru. Nobody's servicing the Spanish speaking community. We should just make this whole shift. And we spent a long time shifting everything to Spanish, the website, everything to the Spanish speaking. And it was exactly what you're saying. We found that business owners, maybe it was in San Antonio or Houston or Minneapolis, whatever it was, they weren't searching in Spanish. They were searching in English. Everything they were doing was English based. They understood English enough. And I think that for them, this is just me having lived through this, is it's like they just kind of moved towards English because they speak it. And so I'm not surprised by what you're telling me, because I would imagine the very same thing is happening, that most, just exactly like you said, the folks that don't speak English most likely work for the folks that speak Spanish and English, and the clientele for the most part of these Spanish speaking business owners are English speaking or most likely bilingual. Like if they do speak Spanish, or they come from a Latino or a Spanish speaking country, that, to your point.
Well, and you actually nailed it on the head. Most of the people that Bellicus interviewed were bilingual.
Yeah.
And in fact, the first one that we ever had on was from Florida. I'm blanking on her name at the moment, but it was a year and a half ago. But I interviewed her in English and Bellicus interviewed her in Spanish.
Yeah.
And she being down in Miami, and it made a ton of sense because she catered to both clienteles. Down was just much more prevalent in terms of who speaks the language down there. But it was a lot of pressure on owners to get interviewed twice, and making sure, because obviously as a business owner, you want to come across as competent. You want to come across as you're telling your story, but you're also, most people are thinking like, well, hey, will my clients listen to this and will it help them choose me to be the business? And the news shocker is most of our peers listen to these kinds of podcasts.
Yes.
Most of our clients do not. Now, every once in a while, a client will surprise you and be like, hey, I heard this really amazing interview that you had with Martin. I'm like, well, I'm glad you did. And anyway, but I think it's going to come more and more, but most of this is entrepreneurs and business owners, because that's kind of what it's set up for. It's not really a client facing podcast. It could be, but that's not really where we're coming at.
Yeah. And I think even if you're talking about the clients that you're probably looking at would be bilingual as well. And I think that there's a tendency, and this is just me throwing this out, is that I still, just exactly to your point, that I think the tendency for a lot of the business owners and also even the clients that they service is to be in an English speaking world.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Obviously we're biased because we are in the United States, but also you look at like the dollar, and like if anyone's going to learn a second language in the majority of the world, their second language is likely English as a trading language.
Right.
We didn't invent that. The British probably did.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, that little cultural tidbit. We haven't even got to your job yet. We're 32 minutes in, and the audience doesn't even know what Mill City Restoration even is, which is fine. This story is way cooler. Okay, we are finally arrived at
let's do it.
After all these decades, we have finally arrived to Mill City Restoration. So you do commercial painting. You've had clients like T-Mobile, DSW, Victoria's Secret, Prada. Tell me about this. Like, how did you then navigate from Eamon Imports and this colorful backstory, you're down in Guadalajara, to Mill City Restoration, which for those from Minnesota, Mill City is kind of a Minneapolis icon, right?
Yeah, nickname.
So I'd love to know a little bit more about that, and then why you started a painting company.
Sure. Well, it's a culmination. So just stepping back one step, as I grew up, my dad and I had a painting business in the Twin Cities.
Right, the one you sold.
Yep, Absolute Painters it was called. And that was, again, when you talk about marketing, Absolute, we just went with AB. And we wanted to, this was pre-Google.
Yeah.
So this is all about the yellow pages.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So, and then we stole the Absolute vodka, which was hot at the time. We took it right from them, and I was hoping I'd get sued. I mean, that was my hope. Sue me so we can get, but it was a good run. So was my dad and me. So do that. Like I said, we sold it, and then we come back. And then what happened was, quite honestly, I'm in Mexico, and my dad got sick. And so he was a Vietnam vet. And so he had Agent Orange, which devolved into cancer. And so we're all down in Mexico, and he had to do a lot of VA stuff. So it's just the truth of it all, right? Yeah. Being as raw as I can. Yeah. So he's doing a lot of VA, and it's going to have to be up here in Minnesota. Yep. And so at the time I was like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? I just needed to make sure that we could take care of him. Sorry, I get a little emotional, but anyway, so moved up here. And when we were up here, I just started talking to my old guys, and they were like, hey man, you should do stuff up here. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do?
What was the quick timeout? What was the time gap between when you sold Absolute Painting to this period of time? 10
years,
okay,
10 years and some change.
Okay.
So but all my guys are still kind of doing their thing. And we always had a great relationship with everyone that worked for us. And so when we moved back up, they were like, you should start another painting business. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. But as my dad got sicker, I needed to put something where I didn't have to think, basically. And so now I could take all of my so I was like, I'm going to SEO a site. I'm just going to search engine optimize a site. I'm going to start putting it out there, and we're just going to start seeing if I can get something for these guys while I'm up here. Because at the time I'm still kind of traveling back and forth and doing my thing. And that's really the evolution of what becomes Mill City Restoration. And also another hat tip to a great friend of mine and someone that does tons of podcasting. His name is Mark Levine. And so Mark's up here, and he had a business that was Mill City Publishing, and they did self-publishing, everything. So I took Mark's name, Mill City, but we'll get rid of publishing and we'll just call it restoration. And I'll take my background in doing SEO and web work and branding, and we'll just kind of see what happens. And like I said, I couldn't think about anything because I was doing web stuff, but when you're doing creative work, you have to have a lot of interaction with your clients. You have to make sure that I'm understanding what you're looking for, what your vision is, who are you servicing? And we used to do a lot of fun stuff that I think is even fun. I've often wanted to do it for a while, wanted to do it in like, say, high-end residential, the same exact. I used to do this. It was kind of trying to pull out of somebody, what do they want? So we would create, and maybe you do this when you're talking to, I don't know what you do. I'd love to know your process, but when you're meeting with somebody, it used to be that I'd have the decision makers and we would do a 30-minute process. By the end of it, I could make a statement by filling in the blanks that gave direction and goals to your design wishes. And it was a lot of fun. It was just so much fun.
Almost like Mad Libs.
It was exactly like Mad Libs, but we would create smart. Yeah, I would say, I don't want to hear about, I want a 30 to 45-year-old. No, I want to know there's a 35-year-old named Mark who likes to do extreme running. And so he loves the weekends off. And because of that, we want to make sure that we're designing a website that approaches it. And I often
you were trying to get to the why.
Yeah, right. And it was a lot like, why exactly? Who are we doing this for? Why are we doing this? And don't tell me generic. Oh, everybody's my client. No, they're not. They're not. That's not true. Right. You've got to zone in a little bit. So I got so excited about
just
that.
Talking about Mill City starting.
Yeah. So we start doing this and we just start getting traction. And that's all I can tell you. So we start getting traction, but at the time, so now this is about 8 years ago or something like that. So I'm in my mid 40s. I've come back and
did you move the whole family back? Your wife and your kids?
Well, at the time we hadn't, and I never really did. So my older son was already moved out, so that was okay. And then my younger son, no, he just kept going to school, and he did do like a year or something in Highland or something like that.
He studied abroad in Minnesota.
That's exactly what he did. It was so weird. Yeah.
Isn't that a funny role reversal?
Totally. Yeah, that was exactly right.
The real reason to bring it up is I went to school when I was in college. I was at the University of Minnesota, but I went down to Australia for a year. And in hindsight, my cousin went to school in Mendoza, Argentina, and picked up Spanish. I'm somebody that doesn't learn great I was smart enough, but like I can't, being in a class, I need to be culturally immersed in it. Like if you dropped me off on an island and gave me a couple of years, I'd learn the language language.
Yeah, totally.
Not like your brother Dan. I don't think I would have picked it up quite that quick. But anyway, long story short, I just loved that role reversal that your son came back to Minnesota to 100%. So funny.
And he just graduated from the U of M.
Okay.
Which is
full circle.
100%.
Oh my.
Yeah. So we're doing our thing. And anyway, so we start kind of getting a little bit of traction, and I'm not really seeing a vision, but I'm in my mid 40s, and I'm like, because at the time, as I said, I'm just really kind of focusing on my dad. What are we going to do with my dad? Take care of him. Okay, here's a job here. Here's a paint job there. Here's a website here. There's a website there. But at a certain point, you're just like, I can't, there's too many things to juggle. Web, to be honest, it just wasn't my passion. It's what I fell into because I was good at Excel. And then the guy asks me to do this and I'm doing that. So we get back into painting, and really commercial painting then becomes an accident that I was really happy with, because I just started working. I was working with, do you remember Seventh Steakhouse by any chance? Downtown, 7th and Hennepin. So I was working down there with an owner, and this was kind of my transition. I was working with him doing social stuff and some other things. And then all of a sudden, one of the folks there needed a J. Crew painted, or knew somebody that I forget how it all worked. Hey, can you do a bid? Oh, sure. And I don't know anything about commercial at the time. I mean, true commercial. I mean, I know this is me being a little snooty right now, but a lot of times I'll see on the side of a truck or something like that, residential and commercial. And I'm like, I don't think you're commercial then, because they're just two monstrously different things. I think some people do like they go to a small restaurant, maybe paint the back walls or something. And again, I'm not putting
it's a different animal.
It's a different animal. I didn't know that at the time. So I got the job. I'm walking on.
You're probably like 100,000 lower than the other bid.
Probably. And I walk on, I've got because I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've got tattoos. And so I said, I used to wear like kind of funny socks to sort of take the edge off of my look, to be honest with you. And like you walk on this commercial site, and that's just not happening.
Yeah.
Get your work boots on and all this stuff. So I started learning like real fast. We're like, hey, what's going on? But I started learning, this is cool. I like working with a soup who's going to define our goals, and we're going to have.
So do you? This is actually the main part of the interview I want to get to.
Yeah,
we love talking about entrepreneurship, but being a residential builder.
Yeah,
and everyone I hire, you always hear about commercial. Oh, you can't do commercial; it's different. But I've never tried it.
Yeah,
I don't have a lot of interest in it either.
Sure.
Other than I'd maybe want to try one just to see. Just only to speak about it, like how different it is.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your perspective to break down for the audience, because I think a lot of people, I have no question that I have the skills to be a commercial builder, but I am not a commercial builder.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally.
And so I would love to know, for you, just I'm guessing based on what you said, you have all this going on. Your dad is sick. You've got 20 businesses rattling around your head. I'm guessing you like the fact that someone else helped bring order. My favorite quote last year was "Boundaries create freedom." They created boundaries for you to then be very clear on your scope. Is that what you appreciate about? Is that a quick way
I think that's a great way of saying it. I hadn't thought of it in that way, but I think that's exactly right. I mean, so if we're talking about one of the neat things, like for example, residential high-end, and I'm going to say that a higher end residential clients, which I still do. I want to step back. Like my favorite project of the past year was one of my favorite residences, the Prince House. Like that was super fun, super spectacular. But even there, like this gives you a good perspective of it. Things are always changing. It's a really fluid thing. So most of my clients, on occasion, I worked with builders like yourself, but then a lot of times I'd also work with the client.
Homeowner direct.
That's right. So
that's challenging.
It can definitely be a different animal. So if I were to start talking about some of the differences, one of the best differences is I get to read a set of plans and I know exactly what's being asked of me. I specialize in big box stores or tenant remodel. So for example, I was telling you that right now we're doing a Madewell at Ridgedale, and then we're doing a J. Crew. So our current project's at another J. Crew, coming full circle, J. Crew at Southdale. So I've got a set of plans, read the plans. This is it. And it's very clear for me. I can have my paint delivered. I know what's happening. And then the unforeseen challenges, for example, might be They're mostly based in timeline, and it's normally based on like other trades. I mean, I like to pride myself on the fact that I deliver. If you're telling me it has to be done by this time, it just gets done by that time. But what might make it more difficult for me is the taper and mutters didn't do the right whatever happened.
I got a news flash for you. It's the same in residential. And
yeah, right. You're right, right.
This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. If you're still chasing checks and juggling spreadsheets, it's time to upgrade. Adaptive is revolutionizing how builders get paid with AI-powered bill pay, automated draws, one-click payments, and built-in lien waivers. Faster payments, fewer headaches, and total visibility. Adaptive takes care of the back-end chaos so you can focus on what you do best, building. We've used Adaptive for 2.5 years and trust them to keep our projects moving and payments flowing. Learn more at adaptive.build and simplify the pay process today. For more information, you can also listen to episode 10 and episode 15.
But so what I like about commercials, it's all really clear. It's like, for example, with residential, I had a friend of mine that I worked for, and he would do and he was great work, great stuff. But it wouldn't be really clear what was being asked of me. So I might walk in and he's trimmed out everything. I put a coat of paint on there. I'm like, man, you've got a lot of nail holes. Your seams aren't matching up. And he's like, well, I was hoping you'd do that. And I said, what do you want me to do? And he'd say, well, can you grind everything down? And it's like, well, but then I'm a sander. I'm not a painter. Right. Okay, I can do that kind of stuff. And so like the clarity wasn't really there. And so I like that. I like the fact that for the most part, you're left alone too. Like that's another thing. Like, here's what we need you to do. So even though I'm working for the soup, who's working for the GC, who's working for J Crew, this is still my world. When we come in to do my painting, I'm going to talk to the soup. I'm going to coordinate with the soup, and then I'm going to ask the soup to step back.
Do you think it's fair to say that I have a militia who's like, I've got guerrilla warfare and you're in a military with like clear boundaries? Like it's very organized.
Oh yeah.
Compared to residential construction. Yes. I think the further up we do high-end residential work, like you clearly have to have not only competent people, but you have to have clear lines of scope, especially when you get to higher end architecture, higher end designs. Like there's clearly things you need to do.
Yes.
But I feel like there's probably more leeway. There's definitely more cowboys in residential construction because, to your point, I think for us, after doing this for 21 years, I think you vet your partners and you really understand what they're capable of. And I always say you need to do about 2 to 3 projects with, whether it's your cabinet shop, your HVAC, painter, whoever, so they understand you and you understand them. But I tend to stay pretty loyal to my people.
Yes.
Assuming their skill sets can transfer to where we go and vice versa, and timing. And you have a couple in case the timing doesn't work out. Obviously, you don't want to be hamstrung. But at the end of the day, the relationship is really good because they know what to expect when you get a lot of it. And it's not, for me, it's not always about a number. I've always heard that commercial can be really cutthroat in terms of the price is the price. Is that true? Like,
I think that,
how does relationship building work in commercial versus cost?
Yeah. So I think it's a good question. And I think there's a combination of both. I mean, and I'm sure it's with you as well. You've got somebody and you ask your painter, hey, what's the price on this? And you just trust that it's a fair price, right? As long as all of a sudden it's not whatever.
And you get multiple bids. So usually it's like throw away the high, throw away the low. There'll be 2 in the middle and they'll be pretty close. And
yeah. And so then what happens with commercial is you've got those folks, like, for example, a shout out to Elder Jones, who's a commercial contractor here. And they've also got offices in Arizona. They're exceptional. They're great. They're well-funded and they're not arguing with you. They know that, like, for example, I did an aloe with them out at Gallerias, and it was, to your point, I don't know where I came in with the bidding process, but I've never been the lowest. Most of the time I'm hovering towards the higher end of what's going on, but but they'll know because of our relationship, hey, it's easier for me to work with O'Connor here, and maybe it's 1,000, couple thousand, whatever it is that we're talking about, but I don't have to search around. I don't have to do
I know what I'm getting. It's a known entity.
Yeah. Now the flip side is that a lot of folks, so like with commercial, the flip side is that some GC out of New York City might have all of the, like I say, a J Crew. And so they're coming into each area and then
they don't know, they don't have the relationship.
And they're trying to get the lowest number possible. Right. So I try to find those people, not work with them.
Yeah.
It's like, I just go back
to your other thing, identifying your ideal client is perfect. Like you can't work for everyone.
Yeah.
And there's enough work for everyone. You just really need, I know sometimes, especially if you don't have work, you don't believe that statement, But I think that when you really have your niche or your kind of clientele, it becomes much more true. I mean, everyone's been at points in their career, and sometimes you have to rediscover it, where it's like, I need work. I need to put coins in the meter. Like, this thing is ticking, the mortgage is ticking, and it's like, I get it. Like, I've been there multiple times in my career.
Yes.
And because I think construction is cyclical, commercial, and it used to be that when residential was up, commercial was down. They kind of had this inverse wave. I don't know. Now I'm sort of out of touch with that wave, but I'm curious. Do you think that is there any pattern between residential and commercial from what you've observed or not?
It's hard for me to know that answer because I spent so many years now in the commercial world, and the residential that I do is fairly high-end residential for a couple of select clients.
Sure.
So I'm not quite sure how the residential market itself plays out. If I were to, like, another big challenge that I have, and then this speaks to the idea, and this is one of the things as I've grown and been able to do this. So to your point, 7 or 8 years ago, as we're starting out commercial, it's like, I don't care, anybody who's got it. One of the biggest challenges, and it's actually what led me to get my master's in accounting, is that it's about cash flow. I mean, one of the biggest things that I love, and one of the reasons that I keep a handful of GCs, I don't do any more working directly with the client. Very rarely. I shouldn't say not anymore, but very rarely. And it's almost got to be word of mouth from a client. But the biggest challenge, and this is why I keep some GCs that I'm working with, is just when you get paid. So like with commercial, there's a whole range of, it's kind of based on the GC. And one of the things that I've noticed with general contractors over the past couple of years, you've got two. One set of general contractors is trying to push all costs, holding all costs onto all of their subs. So, for example, I just finished a job, so that we'll see how long I'm working with this particular contractor, but I'm holding enough money that I'm not comfortable with for about 3 months.
3 months.
3 months.
And your work is done.
Yes.
Why would they? So is that retainage?
No.
So why are they not paying for 3 months?
So what happens is, so this is kind of how so for example, we start the job at the beginning of the month. Okay. So then what happens is at the end of the month or the beginning of the next month, you then bill for what you've done, but that billing doesn't get submitted till the end of that month.
So you're 60 days in arrears.
Now we're at 60. And then once they submit the billing, the client has another 30 to submit payment.
Can you now, okay, this is just my logic on this. So can you charge more for that because you're waiting so long?
I probably should.
Because I used to always tell people, like my clients will sometimes ask me, hey, you need to lean. I hate that word. Hey, you need to lean on your guys, make them do less. I'm like, no, you didn't come to me because I'm the lowest provider. I will get a fair deal. I'll get a good value.
Yeah.
But I would be far better off to going to Martin and say, Martin, my client's goal is this. How can you help me?
Yeah.
I believe in partnerships. I don't believe I don't like the word boss. I don't like the word owner. I don't like those words. I like partners.
I hear you 100%.
Well, of course you do. Because it's a better way to run a business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's when someone comes in and tells us how to run our business, that's when things usually don't go super great. But going back to charging more, it's like, okay, they want you to wait 90 days to get paid.
Yeah.
They want you to do your work. I'm sure they want you to do it fast and jump. When they say jump, you say how high, all those, not those things. To me, I've always told clients, you can ask for price, you can ask for speed, or you can ask for quality. I mean, I'm not the one who invented this.
Yeah.
Pick two.
Right.
It's the three-legged stool.
Yeah.
And so you're going fast, you're going quality, but you should be paid more.
Sure. I really like what you're thinking. You should get into the commercial GC world. I think, Mark, good for you.
I get fired by all the Wall Street people that pay me like, man, Mark's jobs, they go way cost overrun. Man, he's nice to his guys. His guys love him. I'm sure they do. Wait.
But I mean, like you get, well,
why agree to it? Why is that normal? So it only works because another painter's willing to do it.
That's right.
And so that's part of its education. Part of the reason why we have this podcast is to say, like, this is not normal. This is not good.
Right.
Like, they should not be pushing on their financial responsibilities to you unless you acknowledge that, know about that, and are either compensated for it or there's a return. Maybe it's like, hey, I have 3 other jobs coming. If you help me out in this one, that totally makes sense. Then you're knowingly making a decision. I'm just curious, is this normal for commercial, or are you just saying this is the type of a GC?
That's a type of GC.
And they exist, by the way, in residential too.
Oh, I believe it. Sure. But I think the flip side is, and again, I'll just go back to Elder Jones, who I don't not mind naming because it's for good reasons. Elder Jones is 90% when you walk on the job.
When you walk on
the job day one. No, I don't know if that's just with me because we've got a good relationship.
Right.
But yeah, I walk on the job. It's 90%.
What about materials? I mean, let's say you have $100,000 job. Are they giving you $20,000, $30,000 up front? The type A one?
No.
Or you have to front all that too?
Yes.
Oh my word.
Right. So, I mean, so like that's part of so every year I try more and more. Like one of my first questions talking to any GC now is, what are your payment terms?
I was told by my lawyer. So like, we don't have in residential, it's very uncommon from what I understand to have liquidated damages. I know that's very common in commercial. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that. And then 2, retainage. I've always been told, run for the hills. Someone asked for a retainage. And Brad Levitt, who's a good friend of the show and a good friend of mine personally, he often shares this thing. And I love this. He was talking with someone and he asked for 10, 20% down up front, but it doesn't go against your monthly draws. It goes against the final bill.
Oh,
and the client had said something like, even like monthly, he had in his contract, or another builder in his builder group had talked about this, that if you miss a payment, or let's say as the owner or GC in your case doesn't pay you within whatever your terms are, 7 days, 10 days, whatever, fairly short, they can charge 30% interest per day. Now, technically, Minnesota, that's illegal, so no one should do that to their own contract. But the whole point was, the owner told this builder, said, what, 30%? He's like, why, are you planning on not paying me? And it was just dead silent.
Yeah.
And he signed the contract.
Yeah.
And the point is like, this is only a problem if you choose not to pay me.
Yes. Right.
And if you're planning on not paying me, why don't we save ourselves all a bunch of time and headache and effort? And why don't I just not work for you? It seems a reasonable ask.
I totally am with that.
So I brought that up to my lawyer, and he's like, yeah, you can't. He goes, he's like, the balls on this builder was something else.
Yeah.
And he goes, I love it. He goes, first of all, it's against the law in Minnesota. I forget what the rate is, 18, 20% or whatever it is. But like, I mean, and credit card companies do it to every single person in America.
Yeah. We just need to move to South Dakota.
Why? What's in South Dakota?
That's where you get to charge all the interest. Well, that's used to be the cake, right?
Okay.
Where you can charge any interest rate you want.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. That's why, like, if you look back, now this is 20 years ago. But like, if you look at the major Chase, things like that, they're all in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, because
they could charge whatever.
That's where your APR is. Yeah, that's what it. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, that little tangent. Okay, so back to so then you've got one that pays you 90% up front. That's amazing.
Shout out to Elder Jones again.
Way to go, Elder Jones. I like this. I like this.
Yeah.
There's so many more questions I have that we're not going to have time for. Talk to us about liquidated damages. I've explained this to a few. So I have a few clients that have commercial facing companies, big companies, and they've had lawyers on their teams ask me, hey, Mark, we want to hold a 10% back. And I just simply say, no, I'm not going to agree to that. That's not how we do business. I need to understand the why. Like, what are you, and we've always been able to work through it. In commercial, like sometimes I've heard of architects holding retainage. Mm-hmm. Hey, we'll hold 5 to 10%. Mm-hmm. It's not. It depends a little bit where in the sequence is. Like on the sequence of a build, let's say concrete. Like I'm doing residential here, but let's say it's foundational. I mean, if it takes a year to build, the concrete work is probably done in the first 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, why would you hold 10%? Let's just use $100,000.
Sure.
Why are you holding 10,000 for? That's not right.
Yeah.
That should be released.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I hear you.
And
I agree with everything. Paint's a little bit difficult.
You really need someone in this seat over here to disagree with us. Because right now we're just saying, you're just saying yes.
This is great. This is amazing. Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, especially in my life, I understand. I think in terms of retainage and things like that, I think like for me as a painting subcontractor, I just get thrown because I've got maybe two clients or so in the past year that have had held retainage. Now, one of the things about that is that normally as the painter, I'm one of the last ones in. So for me, retainage doesn't become that much of an issue, but I still think it's weird. I mean, but I think to your point, I think I'm kind of getting lumped in with the concrete guy or the plumber or the electrician. They want to hold it. Maybe I can understand that a little bit. Hey, we want to, whatever it is, 6 months to make sure there's not going to be a fire. And then I just kind of get thrown into that mix. So it's a little bothersome, but to me, that's, if you've paid me, let's just say 90% or something like that, and I'm waiting for my last 10% of retainage for a couple months, to me, it's just part of the commercial game.
Yep.
And again, it's all about filtering out the GC. If you've got that opportunity, speaking to you, what you were saying, if you've got that opportunity, which I do right now, to be able to say, these are the GCs I want to work with, and this is why. And I'll tell any GC why. It's because you pay me and you trust me to get the work done. And I also don't have to fight you for like an upcharge.
You're so true on that. How do I gauge this? I have a friend. I'm trying to figure out how to nuance this, but I have I don't know how to talk about it without keeping it anonymous. This is the first for me. I can't believe I'm tongue-tied on this one. I guess we'll just talk about this.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of how to.
Let's hear it.
And I really want to talk about it.
Get honest.
Well, I am. I just got to make sure I'm not throwing people under the bus that owe me money. But it's like, okay, I guess pursuing pills is kind of a different tactic here. If I want higher quality paint job from you, and I'm constantly asking you to do better work and better work and better work and be at my beck and call, but every time you call me, you're asking to be paid. Like, those two things are incongruent. They're going to hit heads. Now, if I pay you all the time, on time, you can do all those other things for me and you're happy to do them because I pay. It becomes really hard. And like, how much more could you do for me, or recommendations? Like, if I spend all my time and energy trying to get paid, what about introducing you to other builders I know? Like, there's just so much more we can do to help each other. I have a good friend that every time they speak in front of an audience, and he's definitely right on this, is that there'll be an audience of 20, 30 people. And you say, there's enough people in this room that if we just leveraged who we know, leverage is a good term in this way. If we can just leverage our relationships with all the people we know in this room, we'd all be busier than we could possibly handle this next year. So why don't we get busy helping each other? And we need to do two things to do that. One is ask for help, and the two is be a help. And I think that's a beautiful message. Mm-hmm. But the point is if you have a partner, whoever this partner might be, and all you're doing is asking for something versus like sharing, the relationship isn't balanced. And it's really hard for you to kind of go back to that principle of yin yang, helping each other. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's always a quid pro quo or you help me. It needs to be out of a genuine care. I think that's one of the things I love excuse me, about relationships with the sub base is like, I've had subs before that have called me and said, hey, things are really tight. Usually we do 50% at rough end, 50% at close. And they call me and they said, hey, we're having a hard time making payroll this month. Would you be willing to front us 25% of that last 50% that's due? I said, no problem. I said, I've been working with you for 2 decades. Like, you've never asked for this. Of course, I'm willing to help you. And I'm glad that they felt that they could trust me and be vulnerable to ask that. Mm-hmm. Now, if that was the first time I ever worked with that person, I couldn't say yes, because it wouldn't be fiduciary, it wouldn't be responsible of me with my client's money to do that. But like, after actually with this couple, it's 40 years between my dad's company and my company. Like, we'd worked with this family. Like, we knew it was fine. You trust them. No different than that Elder Jones. Yeah. Man, this would be an Elder Jones podcast. We'll get them as a sponsor. Yeah, there'd be a good one. They're paying you 90%, but they know that they're helping you make payroll and get. And you're gonna jump over back. You're gonna work nights, weekends, whatever it takes to get them done.
Anytime that phone rings, and 100%. Yeah, I don't have to elaborate on that because you're 100% correct.
Beat that horse to death. It's a dead horse. You had mentioned something before we came on the podcast here. Maybe sounds like you and I could talk for about 3 hours at this rate. You had mentioned that one of your big goals was sort of transferring knowledge and empowering other people. You've done that with all your various careers and jobs already, plus your family and yourself. And what does that look like over the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years in your career now?
Yeah. So that's part of the reason right now that I am getting my master's in accounting, is because it was a journey that it happened from commercial, and it was really about a cash flow. And so when we talk about transfer knowledge, one of the biggest things I want to at least talk to anybody, but because my world's commercial, is I do want specifics, because here's some specific advice that I would like to impart on most folks starting out in commercial, because a lot of us start out, if you start off in residential or whatever, if you're starting from the ground floor, you didn't have your dad, you didn't grow up in the trades, you didn't grow up with this, but a lot of us will start at ground zero. And if you're successful, especially in commercial, to what I was talking about, you have to understand cash flow. So many folks don't understand running a business versus doing what you love. If you tell me, God, I just love to bake, I can't wait to open up a bakery, it's like, don't open up a bakery, just be a baker. And I know you've heard this, where it's like, don't tell me you want to do that, because that's not what you want to do. Or a great friend of mine, this is probably the best. This guy was one of the best tattooists here when we were growing up, the old punk rock stuff. He's doing great tattoos, moves to St. Louis. And now he owns multiple tattoo shops, and he owns a tattoo removal. And I mean, it's really like kind of a tattoo empire.
I like it. Tattoos and tattoo removal.
Yeah. Oh, he's got it all figured out.
So my kids are obsessed with Dr. Seuss, the Starbelly Sneetches.
Yes.
You know this?
Yes.
Right? The Starbellies with stars and without. Yeah. Put them on, put them off, put them on, put them on. And then there's no money left.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like so genius, and it's in the same place. Like, here's where you go to get the tattoo you don't want, and here's where you go to get it removed. But, like now, and especially we're hitting in our mid 50s and things like that. One of his big complaints is he's like, man, I don't get to tattoo anymore. And it's like, well, yeah, man, you run a business, you run multiple businesses, and he hates it.
He misses the artistry.
Right. Cause he grew up as an artist, not as a business person. So for me, I think one of the fortunate things for me, to your point, is it's like, I've done a lot of different businesses, but they're all running them. Right. So it's like my mindset can kind of change depending on what I'm doing. And so specifically then stepping back to this though, one of the things I was unprepared for and talking about holding 30, 60, 90 is cash flow. So when business really started to click for me and I went from $250,000 to $500,000 to $750,000, the problem is that I'm holding $70,000, $80,000 now for 3, 6, 9 months. And it was horrible. It was horrible for me to like to be looking at $100,000 in receivables, but I still don't know how I'm going to make payroll this week. I still don't know how I'm going to do this, what I'm going to do for my suppliers. And I don't know how. And so you've got to understand, I think the sooner you can understand it, the better. And for me, I didn't understand it until just a few years ago, that it's like, you want to keep your books looking good. And you want to make sure that your financials are ready to rock and roll, because your financials aren't for you. So this is where we kind of get into the specifics of the advice. One of the biggest things that I want to tell younger or people starting out, I don't care if you're young or 40, man, make sure that your financials are correct and looking good, not just for you to kind of look at the end of the year and be like, oh, look at that expense or look at this. No, it's so that you can hand this off to an investor, to a creditor, or to whomever, and they can say, God, you've done a great job here, Mark. And if your financials look this good and you're doing this kind of business, we can ride with you. Here's your credit, here's your loan, here's your things like that. And that's one of the biggest things that I would tell most people getting into commercial, is to make sure that as you're growing, that your books are tight and that your financials are tight. And so so when you talk about where do I want to be in 5 years, I want to keep, I want to keep this business solid. I've got 2 sons that flirt with the idea of staying involved in this business. I don't know if they will or they won't. I've got another smaller business in Guadalajara. But as we continue to grow and I get a little bit older, at this point, I don't paint. And when I hand it off, one of the things I'd like to see transition is to help folks prepare for the future, prepare for their finances, prepare for where they're going. And so this is the whole thing about my accounting degree, was to try to say to, not necessarily you, but someone, just say, this is how we're going to sit down, Mark. Where do you want to be? Oh, you're hitting $750,000. What are you doing to make sure you're prepared for the person who doesn't pay? Period. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had clients. It was 2 years ago. It was the weirdest thing. Like 2 or 3 clients that cost me $50,000 because they just said, oh, we're not paying, after I painted their pizzeria. Okay. I guess that's weird. But so you've got to be prepared for what if they don't pay, and how are you going to keep paying your folks? So those are kind of the biggest things that if I was to talk about transitioning in 5 years, it would be to keep this business, figure out how it's going to be run, and at the same time, work with other people in this space to prepare them to not have the same challenges. You're going to have your own, but to not have the same challenges I did when it comes to like cash flow, for example.
I mean, I think it's that's a whole episode. It's a whole life, actually, to get there. I mean, I feel like I'm just ready to say amen to everything, because I would say, I've talked about this a lot of times on the podcast, 2 things. One is, I didn't know. So the Contractor Coalition Summit is something that's put on a couple times a year. The audience knows about it, but basically twice a year, there's a group of builders. Now I'm actually a part of it, that you go for 3 days, and you open your books. You talk about sworn construction statements. You talk about contracts. You talk about lawyers. You talk about all the things to run a business. Mm-hmm. Building just happens to be the business that we're talking about. Because entrepreneurship, like, you could listen to this episode. I don't care if you sell LaCroix, if you have Apple iPhones, you make pens, cameras, homes, painters, it doesn't matter. All the stuff that we talk about is relevant.
Right.
And I think, yes, school can help you with a number of things, but life and experience and failure and all those things, that's the real school. And I remember you ever hear those things where it's like you heard them when you were a kid or whatever age. And then now I'm 45, I'll be 45 next week. And I'm like, you look at it, you're like, wow, that makes way more sense now that I'm a dad and an adult and I've gone through this. But my dad used to always say early on, I was in my 20s, I had no idea what he meant by this. And now I say it all the time. You could be a good builder and you could be bad at business and you won't make it. You could be good at business and a bad builder and you could make it. Hopefully you're good at both. And I think that speaks a little bit to, you need to know how to run a business. You need to know your cash flow. And I think once you get that and once you're healthy and once you understand, like I didn't know the difference between markup and margin until I'm not an accountant and nobody explained this to me. I don't know why my CPA never explained that to me, because that would have been helpful to know that, hey, I'm charging 12%. Then how come at the end of the year I'm left with 10%?
Yeah.
Well, that's because you were using markup, not margin. And guess what? You report anyway, just all this stuff that we talk about all the time on the podcast. So rather than me just repeating what I've repeated before, my question to you is, saying you need to understand your numbers is great.
Yeah.
That's high level. It's true.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What are let's just, because we're well past time and I want to respect your time and theirs. What are two things that you would advise someone to do, regardless of where they're at their business? Like what would demonstrate to themselves or others that you know your numbers? What are some things that you could practically do? Is it seek a financial planner? Is it review it once a quarter with your CPA? Is it, how do you actually do something about, quote, understanding your numbers? Now, I have my own thought process on this, but I'm curious, that's what you're passionate about. What would it mean to you?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question that I haven't thought about. So let me just say off the top of my head, to your point, I would have said that, is that I would find an accountant that speaks your language. Because here's my critique of some accountants, it's that some accountants, some CPAs, they're just filling in numbers. Right. And what I need is an advisor.
Agreed.
And I think that's
strategy.
I need and that's really what a high level accountant should be doing. I can get a bookkeeper to fill in numbers and I can get a bookkeeper that can. So I would find an accountant that's willing to sit down with you, because so many accountants, I just feel like they send me your books. Here's your stuff. Do you agree? Sign here. Off we go. There's no discussion. And so it would be, find the accountant that you're comfortable with, that you can have these discussions with about how to strategically grow your business. And then the second strategy that I would have that I don't think a lot of folks do is understand what your numbers are, understand what your financials are. Take a minute to look at the business side of it. And also, I think maybe a third thing is, and we were not hinting, but talking about it a little bit earlier, is decide whether or not this is what you want to do then. Do you want to run a business or do you just want to be a great painter? Because you can make an amazing living as a painter. Someone who just works for someone like me. You can do this and then go to bed or whatever it is and not have the stressors that some of us have. So I guess if you were talking about the first two things, it would be, and this is probably just because we're focusing on it right now. This would be my third thing. Understand real quickly, and I don't know that this is in alignment with what we're talking about, but I would really, and this kind of speaks to what you were talking about with Costa Rica and everything else, understand what life balance means, because I came from a generation I think is ridiculous. Like when I hear, especially like old guys like me now, like, God, these guys are so lazy. When I was a kid, we worked 80 hours. And I go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I tell them that right now. Or like when somebody says to you, it'll really show that you love this company is if you work over the weekend and you do all, and you go, no. Understand that you have value and that this is also just how you make money, and make sure that like you are doing something that allows you to have peace, because peace is what I think we're ultimately all looking for. We're not doing any of these. I mean, maybe you are to be the greatest of whatever. I'm not.
But I think what drives you, you're right, your joy. I mean, peace and joy, I think, go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to, marriage, relationships, they're all kind of analogous to the same thing. Like you need balance. And there are a period of times that go up and down. We have seasons of life.
Yeah.
And 100% agree with you, especially, again, I keep saying this. I was going to say every year I have a favorite quote, but this quote has been going on 2 years and I can't come up with a better one. It's boundaries create freedom. And for me personally, I was very fortunate to have parents that modeled this behavior for me. They were very home. My parents read every single thing we ever did as kids, my sister and I. And so like having that modeling obviously is super important. And in absence of that, having podcasts where people talk about it and having examples, or just having aspirational, saying like, enough is enough. Like a lot of people do the 80 hours things or 100 hours or whatever it is until they get to a point where like, no. We had Chris Montana on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, and he founded Du Nord Distillery, a whiskey distillery. He was a lawyer. He didn't want to work 120 hours. And he goes, well, don't start a business, because that was the same thing. He had 2 strokes by the time he was like 31, 32. Pretty healthy dude.
Du Nord over in South Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
His episode was 2 weeks ago. You should check it out. It was a fascinating guy. And but his point was stress. He got 2 strokes because of stress. One was he was working on a political campaign. He didn't say which one, but he was in DC working crazy. He sleeps like 3-4 hours a night.
Yeah.
After he said they won the election, and he said he had a stroke like 2 months after. And the doctor said, I see nothing in your medical record other than like, it's not normal to sleep 3 to 4 hours a night. You need more than that. You basically worked yourself to stroke. You're late 20s. Like, this is not normal.
Yeah.
And so again, why we think it's the old guard celebrates this idea of, well, back in my day, I walked uphill both ways. Yeah, you just eye rolled. It's stupid. Why are you walking uphill 2 ways? Like, you should have sledded down one day in the wintertime, at least on a sled.
Right. Yeah. Doesn't seem to have made you a happy person either. Like, anybody who talks that is normally just some grumpy, when you're like,
Well, and it's not just building, or it's not just entrepreneur. Honestly, it's everyone in life.
Yeah.
And I think it's a message. I think there's this narrative out there that, pick your Gen Z. I can't keep track of what number, what letter is for what gen, but basically, evidently, they're all lazy.
Well, right.
Whichever letter we're A, B, C, I, ever know, evidently they're not as good as us. They're blah, 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 blah. But no, like my brother-in-law is like, no, he's like, I want to work for an aspirational company. That's awesome. You should do that. I want to work. I'm fine with working hard now. I don't have a family or kids. And like, I love doing this. My peer group is here. Great. No problem. Are you happy? I think he does have joy.
Exactly right.
I'm not saying that you can't work 80 hours a week and find joy and happiness, but be very careful that it doesn't become a habit that is mindless, that just perpetuates itself. And marriages are wrecked upon it. Kids, fatherhood and motherhood is wrecked upon it. And no one is above it. I think we all can kind of get sucked in. And I find that, like, I love what I do. It's not hard to work. It's hard for me to set down the hammer. And I think the anvil is always there. Like, can you set the hammer down and come back and pick it up on Monday? And you're right. A big part of what I try to talk about and get out of people, because it's important to me to share the messages, the boot camps, the life balance, like not checking your emails on the weekends, having an off switch. Because if you can't be off, how can you really be on? In my opinion. Anyway, that's
well. You're also gonna mistake activity for production. Like, I think the other problem for a lot of folks my age, in our 50s or something, you just have to be doing something. And you go, man, you're missing the point. I mean, there's strategic thinking. There's nothing that you don't know, but it's just like, at a certain point, you fool yourself into thinking being busy is productive. And that's not always the truth.
So say that one more time. What about productivity and activity? You said activity is not necessarily productivity.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I mean, I
like the way you said it.
Yeah. Because I just think a lot of folks, I mean, I see it with my wife and I, it's like, well, what are we doing today? Well, we've got a whole list of chores. Why do we have to have a whole list we don't have anything to do today. What if we just didn't do anything? Oh my God. I don't know. And like, that's a problem of folks my age. It's like, we just got to do something.
Right.
And that doesn't always translate. So,
I mean, yeah, it's so funny. Man, this is hilarious. I mean, I'm a bit like that. I have Caleb McDonald. Shout out to him. I've mentioned him a number of times on the podcast. He's been on a couple times. He's up in Canada. Once a month, he takes a day off to work on his business. He dresses differently. He lives up in Toronto, near it. He takes a train to downtown Toronto, goes to like a favorite restaurant. No one can get a hold of him except his wife. And he works on his business in a different way. I bring that up only like freeing your mind.
Yeah.
Like, one of the reasons why I love ultra running, or I love, like, for me, I had a goal about 2 years ago. I love the mountains. We had a cabin in Glacier Park for 25 years. And I just love being in nature. It's my place that just gives me energy. I like the freedom. And so I love to go and just be in the mountains. I come back with so many ideas, so much energy. And so anyway, you need this space of quiet to have the things that make you tick and give you joy.
Yeah.
So, well, we could talk forever. We got to end this at some point.
Understand, Mark. I can't tell you what an honor this was.
Yeah, this was a great time. Thanks again for everyone tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. We'll have Martin's all his details in the show notes, as always. You can tune in on Mondays for 1-hour episodes, Thursdays for 20-minute Q&As, and everything will be on YouTube as well as the website. If you're interested in the Curious Builder Bootcamp, you can go to curiousbuilder.com, and under retreats, you'll see Bootcamp for Costa Rica. If you're interested, better sign up quick. We only have a handful of spots left, and we will see you soon. Thanks again. Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor, share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth, and with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.